What's going on, Corey Block Fantasy Football League team owners? I'm your host, The Messenger. We are back with another tier list ranking. I know y'all have been waiting for this one for a while. I apologize for the wait. There's a lot of stuff going on in the league as the season is upcoming. Rules had to get changed, so the commissioner said, just hold on real quick. He said, let me get my time to shine first. I said, no problem, commissioner, no problem. I know some of you haven't been anticipating this. Some of you probably don't even care. But you know one person who does? Zay, man. Shout out to Zay, because he been begging for the next one to drop. And I'm actually kind of surprised because his tier list ranking had already came out, but he's so excited to see others, and he's so excited to see the messenger again. And he might be my biggest fan now. You know, at one point a few seasons ago, I thought it might have been Sakai, might have been Emmett, it might have been Lopez, but I don't think that none of them are coming close to what Zay is on right now, man. He truly appreciates the content. I guess he just likes the sound of my voice, maybe. I don't know. It could be the voice, it could be the content. Who knows? Only Zay do. But if y'all can see the thumbnail of the video, y'all know who we got ranking today. Today we are ranking Jahmar 2. Not the number 1 Jahmar, the number 2 Jahmar. The one who lost in the championship last year. Y'all remember that one? Yes, the one that lost. So y'all all know that's the one we're talking about this time. Cause we already did the other Jahmar, the Jahmar 1. This is Jahmar 2. So let's get all this other talking out the way. Let's get straight into breaking down where Jahmar belongs at. Alright, so we got the camera off for this one because we were partially blocking some stats last time, and I don't want to do that again, so we're gonna have the camera off when we breaking down Jahmar's stats. So let's start off with the pros for Jahmar. Jahmar came into this league in the 2022 season. As you can see here, I was on the wrong one before, but his first year was in the 2022. His pros, Jahmar had a 10-4 season. This was Jahmar's rookie season also, which is good. 10-4, top 2 team at the end of the regular season. Very impressive for a rookie. And that 10-4 season, that's a 71.43 win percentage. That is tied second best regular season record of all time. And that's tied first best rookie season record of all time, just for the regular season. So this 10-4 right here is tied first for the best regular season record by a rookie. And I want to mention real quick, we did add a new column since the last time. As you can see, it says games back, so I'm pretty sure everybody knows what games back means. How many games back you are from first place, and it goes for every week. So as you can see, Josh here in first, he's not any games back. But as for Isaiah here, he's 9 games back. This is not the same Isaiah that's in the league now. This is Isaiah Singletary. Isaiah's in the league, we call him Zay. We got Naeem here 2.5 games back because he has a tie. So y'all understand this now. And a quick mention, since Jahmar did finish with a 10-4 record, number 2 in the regular season, he secured a first round bye, just so we know that. Now, this is Jahmar's column G or JG. And since we're taking a look at his pros, we need to start looking at where he exceeded at. And, you know, we really only mention top 5 things that you're good at. If I had to mention that you might be positive or something, or maybe negative or something that should be called out on, I will call it out, but usually it's only top 5 things. So what are some of the pros for Jahmar? Well, we actually got to scroll down a little bit because this other stuff is not really things that need to be mentioned as he's not top 5 in. So we'll scroll down to his losing average. So boom, right here at the end of the regular season, Jahmar had a 111 point losing average. This was the 3rd best losing average of the season. Jahmar's losing average was 4.75 points over the league's losing average of 106.25 points per loss. Just so you can see here, this is where he was at. So that 111 was 4.75 points over, like we just mentioned, that 106.25, and that was also the 3rd best for the 2023 season. Now, what else was Jahmar top 5 in? You scroll all the way to the bottom, and he has a 163 total point margin. What is the total point margin again? The point difference between a team's total points and opponent's total points scored on them throughout the season. So the math equation for that is points for minus points allowed. Jahmar had the 5th best total point margin of the season, 163 here. And that is actually all the pros for Jahmar in the 2022 season. And now you might be asking, how does somebody have a 10-4 season, but there's no other pros to really look at? Now there are other pros to look at, as like he did have green elsewhere throughout the stat sheet as you're looking right here and scrolling through, but it wasn't top 5, or some of them could have been red. For those who don't know, sometimes your schedule could just favor you well, and I believe that's what Jahmar's schedule did for him. It favored him well. And it's not to say Jahmar wasn't good, because he did have a good season, but it wasn't a great season. Jahmar did secure that first round bye, but he didn't make it out the second round. As you know, we do have a power rankings for each season, and it is broken down into a formula on how power rankings are made. What is a formula? That I cannot share with you. That is only for me, the messenger, to know. But ever since it was broken down into a formula, I've been able to look at different things for teams. For the 2022 season, the power rankings were opinion based in a way, even though it was based on stats, but it wasn't formulaic. There was no formula to determine who was where in the power rankings. I'm going to switch back to me just so I can see you guys, since I'm not looking at the stat sheet right now. So as I was saying, 2022 season, it was more opinion based, but still based off of stats. The 2023 season is really when the formula started for the power rankings. But when I look back at the 2022 season and have that same formula applied, Jahmar would have only been 6th in the power ranking. Now, you might be asking, how is Jahmar 6th in the power rankings when he was 2nd in standings? Well, as we know, and as I've said previously, the power rankings and the standings don't really go hand in hand. It can, like it could, but it doesn't have to though. The power rankings have nothing to do with standings. Standings don't have anything to do with the power rankings. The power rankings weighs your team, some of your stats. The standings only does win, loss, and then points. That's it. So as I was saying, Jahmar just had a schedule that kind of lined up well towards him. And Jahmar is not the only one. I'm not using that as a knock against Jahmar because this is his pros section. But I just kind of want to explain that why he doesn't have more pros for this season. And I'll kind of show you here. So here we are in record versus league total, and as we know, record versus league total comes from your record versus league weekly. What is your record versus league weekly? Your record versus league weekly would be if you face everyone in the league during the week instead of a head-to-head matchup / ranking your weekly points in a win-loss tie format. So if you look at Jahmar's record versus league weekly, he does have some good weeks where he is a top 3 scorer, or maybe a top 2 scorer. But as you can see, Jahmar never had an 11-0 week. He never had a 10-1 week. His best week here was 9-1-1, but never really above that. And so this is some of the other stuff I kind of wanted to break down, where I'll show you guys right now. So as you can see here highlighted in blue, you'll have Jahmar's record versus league weekly on the right side of the screen and his wins and losses on the left side of the screen highlighted blue also. So Jahmar lost in week 1, 3, 7, and 10, and he had wins in the ones that I did not name. So as you can see in week 1 and 3, he had negative record versus league weekly, so that means 8 teams outscored him, 9 teams outscored him in this one, and he lost during those weeks because he happened to go against one of those teams. But here in week 11, 4 and 7, but he won 109 to 105. So it was 4 teams that he outscored that week, and he just happened to go against one of those other teams. Wasn't a crazy win, but it was a win regardless to help him to get a 10-4 record. Now Jahmar mostly had positive ones. He only had 4 reds, 1 yellow. But if I scroll down to Jahmar's weekly points, it's not really anything outstanding, as you can see there below the weekly average in points, because it's red here. But this is coming from a 10-4 team. Jahmar's highest amount of points that season was 146. Josh did finish above him. You see Josh had like 171, 172. Jahmar didn't break 150 that season. Now I want to go back to Jahmar's record versus league total. He had 83, 69, and 2 that season. Now Jahmar was one of the playoff teams, and out of all the playoff teams, he had the worst one. Everybody else had 90 plus, besides Emmett, who came 1 game short of that 90 mark. So yes, Jahmar, 10-4 team, number 2 standing. But as we could tell just by looking at these numbers, he might have just had some better matchups than everybody else. Poppy had 106 wins. Poppy was not a top 2 team. So that means Poppy went against some people during those weeks where it might have been just like 1 or 2, maybe 3 people that outscored him. So again, why am I mentioning this? I'm not mentioning other stats to knock Jahmar down. I'm saying this to say that he's just not top 5 in these other categories. There's nothing wrong with that, but I can't say anything good about it if there's nothing there. Now on to the next season. We just going to go right to the next page because honestly, there's nothing good for Jahmar on this screen. And we'll come back to this screen eventually for the 2023, so we can go straight to team stats. So for 2023, you got Jahmar right here. As you can see, why we're not mentioning anything for that, we'll come back to that. But there are pros for his 2023 season and things he did learn on to not repeat the same mistakes that he made. During Jahmar's 2023 season, he was putting up points though. I will say that. Jahmar had 450 plus point weeks in the season, and for a team that was 5-9, that is tough. As you can see, 159 week 2, 154 week 7, week 9 and 10 another 150. That's tough. I don't think a lot of 5-9 teams can stay that. So shit, maybe it was a different type of 5-9 season for Jahmar. We'll scroll down to the losing average, and Jahmar had the best losing average out of everybody. As you can see over here also, he had a 128.4 losing average for the season. Jahmar's losing average was 13 points over the league's losing an average of 115.4 points per loss, and that is the best for the 2023 season, as you can see over here also. And that's the 5th highest in league history. So that 13 points, Jahmar has that at number 5, top 5. Like I said, we mentioned the top 5 things, and that is something Jahmar was top 5 in league history. You scroll all the way down again, and as you can see, Jahmar had a 84-70 record versus league total, and his percentage was 54.55. So as we just went over before with Jahmar's record versus league total for the 2022 season, Jahmar did get himself one more win from last season. As you can see, Jahmar has one of the top ones. He's tied with 3 other people that season, which is kind of crazy. He only trailed Emmett, Pape, and Naeem, so I had him at tied 4th, like I said. But remember, Jahmar did not make the playoffs this season, and so as we can look here again, we know that this has to do with scheduling. Jahmar didn't have as good of a schedule as last season. He did have I won't say a tougher schedule, but just the wrong matchups each week. Now, I won't say each week, just I guess maybe majority of the weeks, but we can look at that right now again. So as you can see here for Jahmar, we have his weekly outcomes on the left hand side, and we have his record versus league weekly here on the right side, highlighted blue. So let's start out week 1 and 2. He went 8-3 for those record versus league weeklies, but he lost both of those weeks. So that means he outscored 8 people that week, but during those weeks, 3 people outscored him, and he just happened to go against one of those 3 people that outscored him, which is unfortunate. We have week 7, week 8. Week 7, there was only one person who outscored him that week, because Jahmar was 10-1, and next week he was 1-10. So that means 10 people outscored him. So this was a deserved loss. This is an unfortunate loss, because he didn't lose by that much. 154.76 to 154.9. That is nasty works. I'm sorry. Not nasty as like, damn Jahmar, you suck, but nasty as like, that's so unfortunate. Week 11, 2 opponents that scored him. He lost 135.5 to 138.86. Another unfortunate loss. So stuff like that hurt Jahmar, just going against the wrong people that season. Not wrong people, but wrong people that week. Unfortunate matchups. And that is all the pros for Jahmar in that 2023 5-9 season. So now we move on to 2024 season. Now this is probably Jahmar's best season. So for the 2024 season, Jahmar finished as the number 1 seed, 11-3 with a 78.57 win percentage. And one of those other stats that's nice to have mentioned is this is the 9th time in league history where a team was always above 500 through 14 weeks. So, and there wasn't a point during those 14 weeks where Jahmar was at 500. He was always above 500. Jahmar just happened to be the best team to do it though, because he was 11-3 and he made the championship, which is another pro of his. Jahmar did make it to the championship this season. And as you see here, all Jahmar's games, Jahmar didn't lose again after week 7. That was his last loss. Now, Jahmar's first big pro that should be mentioned is Jahmar went on a 7-game win streak to end the season. The regular season, I should say that. That is the first longest regular season win streak in league history at 7. No one else has done it. The closest that's been done in the regular season is 6 wins. And Jahmar is also tied first for the longest win streak in league history, including playoff wins, and which is 8 wins total. Now, if you scroll down to weekly points, in week 11, Jahmar had 200.2 points. Now, Jahmar is one of 6 owners in league history to achieve 200 points in a week. At least 200 points in a week, I should say. And Jahmar's 200.2 points that week were 60.38 points over the league's weekly scoring average of 139.82 points per game. That is the 3rd best for the 2024 season. As you can see here, 60 points over that 139. That's how much Jahmar was scoring that week, which is very impressive. And as we look here again in the weekly points section, Jahmar had the 2nd most 150 plus point games scored in a season. He had 7 total. 7, which is very impressive. Only 3 times during that season where he was under the weekly average score. And Jahmar had the first most 160 plus point games scored in a season, which was at 6. 6 in a season. It's very impressive. And that is 2nd most in a season in league history. Now, if you go down to total points here, Jahmar had 2,176.49 points in the season. Now, that was the most for the 2024 season, but it was also the most points scored in a single season in league history. And Jahmar's 2,176.49 points were 244.16 points over the league's total point average of 1,932.33 points in a season. season. That was the first best for the 2024 season, was also third highest in league history. So shout out to Jahmar for that, breaking records. And since Jahmar did have the most total points in his season in league history, that also makes him have the highest scoring average. Jahmar had a 155.46 points per game scoring average. The weekly scoring average was 138.02. And Jamar's 155.46 points per game was 17.44 points over the league's average of 138.02. So that's first best for the 2024 season and third highest in league history also. Now if you scroll further down to the weekly win total and the winning average, you can start breaking down some of his wins. Now for this season, Jahmar had the most wins over the weekly win average for the season, and that was 7 wins total. So all these numbers right here, all the green numbers, you get the most of these. They were higher than the numbers for each respective week, and that's tied second most in league history. During week 11, Jamar's 202 points, as you can see here, was 43.91 points over the league's weekly win average of 156.29. And that was actually third best for the 2024 season. Jahmar had the third highest win average of the 2024 season at 159.74 points per win. That is the fourth highest of all time. And Jamar's winning average was 8.48 points over the league's average of 151.26 points per win. And that was the third highest of the season also. And if you scroll a little further down, as you can see, Jahmar doesn't have a lot of losses. He had 3, and 2 of the 3 were over the average score of the average weekly loss score. 140 in a loss and 150 in a loss is unfortunate, but also impressive at the same time. And in those 3 losses, Jahmar averaged 139.77 points per loss, which is the first highest of the season, and it's also first highest in league history. And Jamar's losing average was 14.98 points over the league's losing average of 124.78 points per loss that season. That was the best for the 2024 season, and that's also third highest in league history. And I also should mention, during Jamar's loss in week 7, Jahmar was over the weekly losing average by 29.17 points, and that was also 5th highest for the season. Now if we scroll down again to record versus league total, Jahmar had the 2nd highest record versus league total of 104 and 50, and that is a 67.53% for the season. That 104 and 50 is the second most wins in a record versus league total all time, and this 67.53% is the third highest record versus league total percentage in a season of all time. For those who may be wondering, like, how's that third and the other second, you gotta remember there was a 2021 season, and that was a 10-man league, so percentages were a little bit different because of that. If you scroll down to the win margins you see of the week and the averages over here, during week 11, Jahmar won by 79.82 points. That was the 2nd highest win margin of the 2024 season. And Jamar's win margin that week was 46.87 points over the league win margin average of 32.95 points. That was the 2nd best for the 2024 season, and that was also 5th best in league history. Now if you go to the averages, Jahmar had a 32.42 win margin average. That was 3rd highest of the 2024 season. Jamar's win margin average for the season was 5.94 points over the league win margin average of 26.48 points, and that was also 3rd best for the 2024 season. Jahmar also had the 5th lowest loss margin average of the season of 23.76 points. Jamar's loss margin average for the season was 2.27 points under the league loss margin average of 26.48 points. That was also 5th best for the 2024 season. And by week 14, Jahmar had a 285.39 point total point margin, and that was the best for the season, and that's also first best in league history. And that is all the pros for Jahmar for the 2024 season. And so now we'll head to the pros for Jahmar all time. But before we even do that, I did receive word that Jahmar was hoping that word got to me, and word did get to me, that he really wanted to point out this stat that he saw. So as you can see, we're in the head-to-head records all the time for each owner against each owner. As you can see, Jahmar here, these are all his records against every league owner that he's won against. For those who are just seeing this for the first time, if you're green, that means you're positive against this owner. If you're yellow, that means you're tied against that owner. If you're red, that means you're negative against that owner. And if you see the black 0 and 0s, it means you never went against that opponent ever. And some of you guys will always have a black 0 and 0 and 0 because you will never have got to face that owner. So for example, a lot of you guys will have Isaiah, Dante, Matt, Bruce, Nasir, because most of you guys never got the chance to play them and will never get the chance to play them because they're not in the league anymore. Now for Jahmar, the stat that he really wanted to point out is that he is 11 and 7 against active team owners who are over 500. And what does that mean? So if you have a win record that's positive and you're over 50%, as you can see here for all these owners, Jahmar has a positive win record combined against those owners. So he is 11 and 7 against the active team owners over 500. Now against team owners all time over 500, he's 11 and 10. As you can see, Emmett is over 500. Jahmar was 0 and 3 against Emmett all time. So I'll make him 11 and 10 all time against active team owners over 500. But that is the best out of active team owners who are also over 500 against teams who are also over 500. So Jahmar really did want to get that stat to me to help boost his confidence up, maybe help him get to another tier ranking. Will that help him? We'll see. Now back to all the other all-time stats. As you can see here, through the 2024 season, Jahmar has a 26 and 16 win-loss record. And Jahmar has the 5th most wins amongst active team owners. So shout out to Jahmar for doing that in 3 seasons. You are now top 5 amongst the active team owners. Not 5th all time in league history, but as of right now, top 5 amongst the active owners. Now when it comes to win percentage, Jahmar has the 2nd best win percentage of all time at 61.9%, and that is the 1st best win percentage amongst active owners. So even with that 5-9 season, Jahmar is still there. Now, I will say this, Jahmar does have less season than the original 5, but Jahmar is also doing better than some of the original 5 members. And I really do believe that even though Jahmar had 3 losses in the last season, which is very good, it was really that first season of Jahmar, that 10-4 season. I feel that that's actually doing a lot of weight pulling because I said I feel like it was mostly matchups that really benefited him well, and not a knock against Jahmar, but it probably just evened out by the time he got to the 2023 season when he had those 9 losses. But yeah, that first season is doing some heavy pulling right now, which gets him here. Now since Jahmar has less seasons than others, he won't have as many points as others. But I will say through 3 seasons, Jahmar has the most points. So compared to everybody else here, the original 5 members, he has more points than these 5. But it should also be mentioned, just like we did mention for Zay also, points did go up during Jahmar's 3rd season, and it was the original 5 members' 4th season. So it can look like that. And it doesn't mean that Jahmar is better than the other people at scoring. It just that means there was a scoring change, and that should be noted. Now, Jahmar has the 4th highest scoring average of all time at 136.49 points per game. That is the 3rd highest amongst active owners. And what do we know again? That scoring change in the 2024 season does impact this. What are some of Jahmar's other pros? We're going to go over to record versus league total of all time. Jahmar has the 5th most record versus league total wins amongst active owners at 271. As you can see here, I'm sorry, this is of all time. He has the 3rd most wins amongst active owners for record versus league total. There are 3 people that have less than him. Jahmar, 1 who just joined, Zay, who only has 2 seasons in the league so far, and Sakai, who unfortunately is an original member. Not unfortunate that Sakai is an original member. It's just unfortunate that Jahmar has more wins and that Sakai is an original member and doesn't. And so Jahmar's percentage through his 3 years in the league is 58.87, which is the 3rd highest of all time and is the 2nd most amongst active owners. Jahmar also has the 3rd lowest loss margin average of all time at 19.58 points, and that is the 2nd lowest amongst active owners. Jahmar has the 3rd highest total point margin of all time at 433.95 points, which is very impressive. And Jahmar has the 4th highest total point margin average of all time at 104.49 points. So what does that mean? That through his 3 seasons, he has an average of 108.49 points more that are scored than he has put up on him. And that is 3rd amongst active owners. Now, that is all the pros for Jahmar. Good list for a breakdown. But now it's time to get into some of the cons for Jahmar. So we'll start off with the 2022 season. Now, as I said, I really only mention things if it's top 5 or bottom 5. But for 2022, there really wasn't as much for Jahmar that was like bottom tier. But I thought that this should have been mentioned mention though. So Jahmar had a scoring average of 122.14 points per game, and even though that is green, that means he had a higher scoring average than the league average. It was bottom half in the league in scoring, so which is not good, but like I said, still a 10-4 season. But there were a good amount of teams still doing better than Jahmar in scoring, but they didn't have the same schedule as Jahmar. Now, this definitely needs to be mentioned. Jahmar is tied second during this season for the most wins under the weekly win average, which was 7 wins. As you can see, Jahmar has a lot of reds here. Jahmar had 10 wins, and only 3 of these wins were over the weekly win average. So, like I was saying before about his 2022 season, that Jahmar really might have just had some good matchups for the season, because putting up these scores could lose a lot of people some games, to be honest. 115 in a win, 109 in a win, 116 in a win. To be honest, those 120 scores also are pretty low also. Like I said, Jamar's highest win was 146 for the season. Not only was that his highest win, that was his highest score of the season. But that's really it for cons for Jahmar in the 2022 season. Like I said, I really did go through all these stats, and Jahmar for the 2022 season, he wasn't bad. As you can see, like 10-4 is not bad. Even with his schedule, he still had a positive record versus league total, as you can see here. And remember when I mentioned with the power rankings that Jahmar would have only been 6 in the power rankings, even though he finished as a number 2 seed. So Jahmar for this season, I would even say it was an average season. I would say it was an above average season. There was a lot of things that factored into place. The floor for his season wasn't low, but the ceiling wasn't high also. And I feel like that's what we really should be looking at for Jahmar this season. I think a lot of people get caught up in the win-loss record, and I usually see it happen every season where a team might have a good win-loss record, but something else is just not matching up with them. Whether it be in scoring, their win average, and stuff like that, or their matchups. You really got to take a deep dive into these things when looking at stats. And that's why it can take me so long to make some of these videos. This season for Jahmar was, like I said, it was an above average season. That's what I would call it. Floor was not low, but the ceiling wasn't high. And if someone wants to call it an overrated season, I wouldn't oppose it. I wouldn't say it was also, though. I'm pretty sure other people would like to have the same season as this. A 10-4 season is still a 10-4 season. And I saw a team that was 10-4 that got by all season that still made it to the championship. It wasn't Jahmar, but there was a team that I saw do it. And I'm pretty sure anybody else would trade places with Jahmar that season. And also, I forgot, there's one more thing I did forget to mention. We were just talking about Jahmar's wins, how they were so under, but I forgot to mention his winning average. Jahmar had the 5th worst winning average for the season at 126.6 points per win. Like I was saying, you had some good matches, Jahmar, and a lot of other people would have liked to have your schedule. Now for Jahmar's 2023 season. As we know, Jahmar was 5-9 this season, right here. Finished number 8 in the regular season. It's not a playoff team. Jahmar did miss the playoffs, unfortunately, for him. Another thing that should be mentioned is that Jahmar was never in the playoff pictures. I can scroll down here, and as you can see, Jahmar's blue and white has never shown up anywhere in these 14 weeks. So Jahmar this season was not a playoff team at any point. That was a 35.71 win percentage. What else? Jahmar had a negative total point margin at negative 14.44. It wasn't the lowest, and it wasn't even the top 5 lowest, but like I said, something to be mentioned. Now, I might get some flack for this, but I don't care. That is all for Jahmar's cons for the 2023 season. And a lot of you might be asking, I'll even put the camera back on myself just so y'all can see me. This season for Jahmar, he didn't benefit from scheduling as he did in the 2022 season. He was a victim of scheduling. And it's not to say that the schedules are scripted in a way, even though they are, because the schedules are all made out, but it's not scripted to like, ooh, Jahmar's gonna lose this week. Oh, I gotta make him win that week and make him lose that week. It's not how I'm talking about as in terms of scripted. It's just unfortunate for him. He was going up against some of the wrong teams each week, as I was showing again for the record versus league total. Jahmar's team was putting up points. I'm not saying he was putting up the most points, but it was better than some. Chris that season was getting by crazy, and Jahmar just happened to be going against the wrong people that week. Now, if people had Chris's schedule, they would be in a much better place. The same way people would have wanted Jahmar's schedule in 2022, people would have wanted Chris's schedule in 2023. They would not have wanted Jahmar's schedule. Jahmar was going against the wrong people in certain weeks. Now, these stat sheets are available for you guys in the league bio on IG, and you could look for yourself. Jahmar wasn't a bottom tier team. In record, he was, but if we look at all the other stats and scoring, it was unfortunate for him. Now, he doesn't doesn't get away from being a 5-9 team. 5-9 is still 5-9, the same way 10-4 is still 10-4. The same way you get credit for a 10-4 season, you gotta get flack for a 5-9 season. And even with power rankings, like I said, I really don't mention power rankings much for these breakdowns, but Jahmar wasn't a top 6 team in power rankings. Had he been winning, then it would have been different, and he probably would have been a top 6 team. The way the formula would have worked out, it would have worked out in his favor, but he just wasn't a top 6 team. He probably was like 7 or 8 maybe that season. I gotta check it again. But that's really it for the 2023 season. Now for the 2024 season, what were Jahmar's cons? For the 2024 season, Jahmar had no cons. Jahmar was a top team throughout the whole season. I went through the stats. He's not bottom 5 in any stats that are significant enough to mention. Jahmar was really that team throughout the regular season, and it could be debated amongst some on maybe what you view as top season, but I'll just say it is debatably the best season, the best regular season, I'll say, of all time. This season by Jahmar was like a 73-9 Golden State Warriors season. And the reason why I say that, because like I said, best record of all time throughout the regular season, which is tied first actually, but didn't win a championship. So that's why they are the Golden State Warriors that year, 73-9. Now we do have a 72-10 team, a 96 Bulls team, and they don't need to be mentioned right now because it's not their video, but they did win. I'll tell you that. They did win. And since we did look at this for Jahmar about the head-to-head record of all time, as you see, Jahmar mostly has greens, but I think we should mention that Emmett and Papa, you've never beat them ever, and you'll never have a chance to beat Emmett again because Emmett is not in this league anymore. You lost to Emmett every time. Same with Papa. You could still get a chance at getting a win against Papa, but that should be mentioned that 2 teams at 0-3, it's nasty works, and you'll never have a chance. Like I said, never have a chance to get win, and never have a chance to beat Emmett, but never even have a chance to try to go positive. And you know, you were always talking about other people's rivals and stuff like that. Maybe they should have this rival. Maybe that should be your rival. Maybe we should have made Emmett your rival. Maybe we should have made Papa your rival, because you know, you were talking about somebody else where like you only wanted the other person to go against some other people because they had negative win record against them. Maybe we should do the same for you. Maybe we should think about that next season. But some other all-time stats that are cons for Jahmar. Jahmar has the 3rd worst win average amongst active owners. As you can see, Jahmar has a 142.83 points per win of all time. It's his 3rd worst amongst active owners. As you can see, Jahmar just got to green in his last win. And if we scroll through to 2022 and 2023, Jahmar has always been a red team. Jahmar just broke through green. Isn't that crazy? If you ask Jahmar how he thinks about his team all the time, he'll tell you he the best. But this? Question mark? Just a question. And also amongst active owners, Jahmar has the 5th lowest win margin average. Jahmar only wins by a margin of 28.74 points. Now it is green, but it still is the 5th lowest amongst active owners. You don't count just for Markel because they haven't put up anything yet. And as you can see, Jahmar has been red most of his career. It wasn't until week 6 that he kind of broke through. Went back down later, but came back up. So most of his career has always been in the red. And so that is all the cons for Jahmar. Next is to do the breakdown of where Jahmar might belong. So here we are. Last time we left off with Zay in D tier. He didn't really agree with that, but hey man, a lot of people might not agree with these rankings, but we still gonna get them done. Now, as I have went over the stats and now I look back on what Jahmar has done, Jahmar has done good. In Jahmar's 3 seasons that he's played, he's made the playoff twice. And now when I look at Jahmar's team, I don't see great. I don't see trash though. Jahmar's team is far from trash. You know, Jahmar does put a lot of time to his team. He's serious about this. Jahmar said that he'd rather have his fantasy team win a chip than the Giants win a chip. That's how much Jahmar is serious. And when I look at the trades and stuff that Jahmar does, the pickups he makes, I haven't seen a bad one. Some of them might be questionable, but it's no trade that like something Isaiah would make. And in the end, Jahmar's trades usually seem to favor him. So I'm not knocking for anything that he's done as a GM in this league. Jahmar's biggest knock is really his 5-9 season. Most people in this league have had a bad season. It happens. But even in Jahmar's worst season, it wasn't as bad as others may have been. 5-9 season, but as Jahmar says, it's a different type of 5-9 season. Jahmar's 2024 season definitely put him into a new perspective. Even though he did not win the championship, it was still one of the best regular seasons he might have ever seen in the league. He drafted really well, didn't have to make too many trades to help him out, only did the necessary trades to keep him going. So here we have Jahmar. Jahmar, you're not an F tier team. You don't gotta worry about it. You're not an F tier team. You've done enough in this league to not even worry about that. D tier? No. You are not the same type of team that Isaiah has. Isaiah has no playoffs. You have 2 in 3 years. That's a 66% playoff appearance. C tier team. When I look at you, your ceiling's not as high as you might think it is, but it's still a high ceiling of a career overall, and it's not an average team. So no, you are not a C team. You're not average. I don't think of you as an average player in the league. B tier. This is above average. What you have done is above average. 5-9 season was bad, but it was an above average 5-9 season. I guess it was a different type of 5-9 season. But that championship appearance, even though it was a tough loss, still something that most other people don't have in this league. So no, you are not a B tier team. I know you probably think I'm not a B tier team. You're not. You're not a B tier team. A tier. From what you've done in 3 years, there are certain things that you've done a lot better than others. Wins, points. Winning points is not as good. You have the wins total, but the winning points is not there though. But championship appearance, both times that you made the playoffs, you've been a top 2 team, which has to be noted. Now, S tier for the elite company, for the ones who just done amazing in the league, really haven't done wrong, haven't done bad. You don't belong here. I'm sorry to say that. You're right back here in A. As I explained before, the S tier is for the people who are elite, like Jahmar. He's only the Jahmar 1. Jahmar 1 had a phenomenal season, and I can't say that you had a phenomenal season because you didn't win it all, but you did have a great regular season, and that's noted. But that 5-9 season, you can't be an S tier with a 5-9 season in these early stages of the Corey Block Fantasy Football League. Later down the line, maybe it could be there and you could be an S tier team depending on what you've done, but you don't have a ring, so I can't put you there in S tier. You say you're not a great winner. You're a good winner though. You're a good winner, but not a great winner, and I don't think you put yourself into S tier talks yet, but you are definitely a tier team, and I think you should be proud of yourself for that. And I think that you, even if you want to be mad at where you're at, you should strive for S tier. I think everybody should strive to be better. Maybe with the change of your team's name, it might do something different for you, but you are a competitor in this league, and you have shown competitiveness to league members in this league. I honestly do think of you as a good team owner, and you do bring something to this league that we need. We need people who take shit serious in this league, and you do take shit serious. That's why you're an A tier team. You were close to having your own championship. Would that have put you at S tier?
I guess we'll never know.